The battle for the fifth starter position has begun. Two of the top contenders pitched this weekend. We'll dig into how they went. Let's get live on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with us live here on Sunday evening. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snider. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio, but today is Vince's birthday, so we gave him the day off, brought in the guy who's almost as good, my buddy Clint Pasillas. Vince, Clint, and I are all lifelong Dodger fans, just like most of you. We've also all spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Clint, good to see you, my friend. And we have a weekend of Dodger baseball under our belts now. I know the games don't matter. It's still fun to see guys in Dodger uniforms, officially sanctioned Dodger uniforms, playing Major League-ish baseball.
Yeah, wearing the Dodger uniform, hanging out, playing baseball games at Camelback Ranch. It's fun, even if we don't know all the names and the numbers resemble that a linebacker might be wearing in the NFL. Of course, I know you're a big-time NFL guy, just like me. But baseball is here. We have a couple of games, and the Dodgers win their first game of the spring. They don't go 0-22 like we were all worrying about after the first three clunkers.
I was hoping for 0-22 because that would make the 162-0 that much sweeter. I mean 173-0 counting the postseason. So, that would be a record to lose all your spring games and then win all your regular season games. The games on Sunday and Friday, were started by two of the top candidates to fill the fifth starter role. The Dodgers have said they're going to start the season with a 5-man rotation. We know 4 of those guys, and we saw Yoshinobu Yamamoto. We'll start to see the other 3 locks for the rotation here this coming week. But over the weekend, we saw Tony Gonsolin on Friday, Dustin May on Sunday, and it was nice to see both of those guys just because it's been a long time since we've seen either of them.
Yeah, I love seeing Tony back. I'm a big-time, what they call it, Catman truther, Gonsolin believer, whatever the hell you want to say about it. I love Tony. And we heard the stories. He was pretty much back. We saw the reports. He could have joined this team late last season if another misfortune had befallen that starting rotation. Thankfully not. Thankfully things worked out. But Dustin May, definitely, this is the guy that watching his reemergence from the cocoon of injury and recovery and, getting attacked by a salad. It was something pretty special to see that today. The emotion he showed as he's battling for, as you said, that fifth spot in the starting rotation.
Yeah, you don't see that kind of emotion often in a spring training game after a 1-inning stint. And he pitched fine. He gave up a hit. He hit a guy, but got a double play and then finished his outing off with a strikeout.
Yep.
And then you could see the emotion as he walked off the mound, kind of covering his face with his hat, and definitely a meaningful thing for him. It's weird to talk about a near-death experience that comes from eating salad. All of my near-death experiences have come from the opposite of that, from not eating enough salad. But yeah, I mean, near death is near death. And you have to imagine there are certain things in your life that kind of make you appreciate things more. And obviously we've seen a lot of that the last few years with the guys getting married and becoming dads, and those things will change your life. I imagine almost choking to death or whatever it was has got to make you appreciate it even more.
Yeah, it sounded pretty devastating. I suggest to people, or maybe not. It is kind of a gruesome story, but Dustin opened up further today to reporters after a start, obviously about the emotions, but also the injury, the frightening situation that happened. And thankfully his wife was like, no, we're gonna go to an ER. And even that, going and getting the scan, I'm telling a very weird abridged version of his story, but it sounded like it took another sort of, as he said, act of God to have these the medical professionals during a CT scan find the issue where this piece of salad, compacted piece of salad is what he said. It was the esophagus torn from trying to swallow water to make it go down, and there was like this big opening there in his throat, and they wouldn't have found that if he didn't like turn during the CT scan there. So uh, at that point, it's not about baseball. It's not about trying to go out and finish your dinner. For him, it was literally about trying to live. And we heard him talk about doctor saying he had 4 more hours before things would have been bad. But for him, it's now having this, getting to this point. It's as he said, huge weight lifted off his shoulders, a breath of fresh air for him, and he was never going to quit. He said it would have taken him being 6 feet under for him to not get back on the mound. And again, that's everything we saw with the hat, the dugout, also just getting behind him, rallying behind him, like he had just hit his first career home run as a big leaguer or something like that. It was really cool. It was really special to see Code Red back on the bump and putting all of that hopefully behind him.
Absolutely a big moment for everybody, and the stuff was pretty good. The fastball was down a bit. I think he topped out at 95, which it is February 23rd, so who knows if that's just start of spring velocity for him. But I saw his curveball had a spin rate over 3,500 RPM, which is crazy. I don't understand why they measure in RPMs something that takes half a second. Like tell me how many times it spun between his hand and the plate. But we know, we have enough context that anything over 3,000 is major elite spin.
Yeah.
And he was around 3,500. So that's really interesting. The fastball, the pitch that hit Connor Joe definitely had some tail to it. It's not quite the same as seeing it at 99 with that kind of tail, but overall, I mean, it looked like Dustin May out there for the most part, which was really, really good to see.
Yeah, another one of the things Mark Pryor revealed before the game, before Dustin May actually got out there, I guess they tweaked his slider grip as well. And that's one of the things. You still saw a lot of that run if you guys were watching the game, but you saw a lot more depth, which was something we heard. If we're putting the injuries and the salad behind us, talking about Dustin May, the pitcher, one of the knocks we've had on him, hey, he doesn't strike out a lot of hitters. Maybe having that depth, having the baseball kind of fall off to go against that running fastball that has made Manny Machado look a fool in the past, that could make him into that dominant weapon that we all hoped he would be when he made his debut back in 2019.
And he's a guy who nobody's ever going to give up on him, because when you can throw 100 miles an hour, people are always going to give you chances to figure it out. Yep. And hopefully he can. And then Tony Gonsolin looked really good too, struck out 2 in his 1 inning of work. His changeup was, or splitter, I call all changeups just a generic changeup. His is a split change. It was filthy. And again, like, not the same adversity, but I mean, the same surgery, the same, other than choking on the salad, it was the same adversity that Tony Gonsolin's gone through. And Tony's probably reached higher peaks with the Dodgers than Dustin May have. Doesn't necessarily have the same ceiling, but he's been an all-star for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And it was really, really good to see him back too.
Yeah, you go look at that baseball reference page, 2022, an all-star in that season, 16-1 with a 2.14 ERA. He actually had a stretch, and I was talking about this on my channel a couple days ago. Guys, go like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. He had a stretch of 33 starts where he had an ERA at or just a little under 2. I think there are still some people who kind of forget about the Catman, how good he was. And he's not somebody who goes out there and does it with a lot of flash and a lot of style. He's showing up, doing his work, and going home. And that's what I love about Tony. He's not going to have We're not going to see him a whole bunch on Pitching Ninja. He's not going to get all the clout and accolades that maybe somebody with the 17, 20 inches of run that Dustin May has. But to have somebody knowing that Tony doesn't need to be a 1 or 2 or even a 3 or a 4 starter for this team, to have that guy also available to you at the back end of the rotation, it is an embarrassment of pitches for this Dodgers organization.
Absolutely. And, it seems like those two guys are the main two battling for that last spot. You've got Bobby Miller. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see when he gets back into action after taking that line drive off his head. We saw another one of those. The Padres pitcher took a line drive off the face on Sunday, 2 and 4 days at Camelback Ranch. Tough. No good there. Hopefully got all those out of the way for the next couple of years. But the Nick Frasso pitched. He's technically one of the guys fighting for that spot, but realistically, it's down to Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin. There's going to be a lot to say over the next week or 3 about which of those guys is going to win that spot. It's probably going to be one of those two guys. I wouldn't count out Bobby Miller yet, but a good start for everybody because all the guys involved look pretty darn good.
Yeah, with Bobby Miller, working against him is, well, 1, now dealing with concussion protocol, but 2, he's one of those guys who has options. Same with Tony Gonsolin. He has options. I don't think they go that route with him. Listening to Mark Pryor and our buddies over at Bleed Los, and I see Mike Salas in the chat. He's the guy who was out at Camelback Ranch today for Dodgers Beat, posted the video of a lot of the media stuff, mainly Mark Pryor, and I forgot the point I was making here. Dustin May. Oh yeah, Dustin May. I reading some of the tea leaves, I could see the team finding a way to kind of give him a blow to open the season, the way they did with Walker Buehler coming off the Tommy John last year. I could see a way where they can kind of get him to buy into the fact, like, look, you're healthy, but you haven't pitched very much over the last 4 years. Let's kind of give you a month, maybe a few weeks into the season, get your feet back under you a little bit more. Also was barely able to really start lifting weights and getting back. He's a tiny boy, of course, so he's a tall boy, but he's not a very strong boy. Weights are not his thing, but still he wasn't able to exert a lot of energy up until about New Year's. So I think there's a lot of things working against Dustin May in terms of him being on the opening day roster, but that's not that big of a deal. We care about who's around and available to help this team at the end of the season and in October. But that's just one of those things. I can see the team finding a way to keep him off that roster. He just got to buy in. He has to buy in.
They could probably justify an IL stint to start the season, even without a new injury, just, still recovering, a little bit of extended spring training. It'll be interesting to see. We'll probably figure more out about that over the next couple of weeks. Another thing we're going to take a look at over the next couple of weeks is some of these young guys. And we've seen some pretty good contributions the last few days from some young guys, Zyhir Hope and Hunter Feduccia specifically. We'll dig into those guys and, what are their chances of actually playing in LA this year? We'll talk about it. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. It's also a lot of fun to use FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether you're backing your team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, you'll never feel like you missed your chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Looking at some of the odds, the next Laker game coming up is on Tuesday. Gives the Mavericks. The Lakers are -295 favorites, 8-point favorites right now over the Mavs. Obviously, some storylines there with Luka and whatnot. So a fun game to watch and maybe a fun game to put a bet on. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, we are back. Thanks again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being an everydayer if you are. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. For your second listen, be sure to check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. You can also go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. And while you're checking stuff out on YouTube, go ahead and check out All Dodgers with Clint Pasillas and Dodger Territory with Clint and Alana Rizzo. Those are the two shows that two of the 2.5 shows that my buddy Clint here does. The other half, he turns that head around and joins me here on Locked On Dodgers like he is here on Sunday night. Clint, I appreciate it once again. And let's talk about some of these young guys, or at least, I don't know if young is the right word. Hunter Feduccia, I don't think is super young anymore. He is 27. He'll be 28 in June. He is almost exactly, wow. I'm talking about this guy being old. He is 20 years and 3 days younger than me. So that is pretty old, you know.
Hey, easy with the math, all right? Easy.
Hey, I know. I'm sorry for confusing you.
Yeah.
But Zyhir Hope is very, very young. Zyhir Hope is just turned 20 last month. And both of those guys, Feduccia had a big game, went 3 for 3 with the home run the other day. Hope hit an Oppo home run on Saturday and then had a big 2-run double on Sunday to get the scoring started for the Dodgers. Both guys, obviously guys who we've talked about in the past, and they're definitely impressing so far.
Yeah, let's focus for a second on Feduccia because I don't think he gets enough love. Of course, everybody's going to be talking about Hope right now, and we will shortly. But it's a tough job for Hunter Feduccia because he's somebody that's ready. He's very clearly ready to, at the bare minimum, be a major league backup, and probably could or should be the backup to Will Smith for this team right now. But there's a fella by the name of Austin Barnes, the man they call the captain. He's around, and I know people aren't necessarily always happy about Austin Barnes remaining around with this team, but he's going to be around. He has at least one more year with the team. I think this will be his last year, but I mean, we're hitting a point where you said 27 years old for Hunter Feduccia. What is it? Michael Busch was 26. You have some of these guys, Cody Hosey getting a chance here during spring training as well. He had just missed I think grand slam today, but had a big knock as well. But some of these guys that are kind of not the quite ready for primetime players, at least in Los Angeles, they're showing up and showing out, and whatever they do, they're going to be sent back to AAA, which is tough. But that's just the state of being a Dodger right now. These people want to come here. You want to play with the organization because they're probably going to help make you the best version of a baseball player as you can be. But if you're young and you don't have service time, you might not get it with the Dodgers big league club.
Yeah, Feduccia, for me, I feel like what he's doing is bumping up his trade value.
That's a good point.
Like for a while, even with the Diego Cartaya trade, so now there's only 3 catchers on the 40-man roster, but Dalton Rushing is going to be on the 40-man roster at some point this year. You're back up to 4. I said all year last year. I was surprised they made it all last year with 4 catchers on the 40-man roster. It's just too many.
Yeah.
And Feduccia, he's ready to play. He is ready to be some team's backup catcher and stepping in when a catcher gets hurt and actually playing a solid catcher. Maybe not for a team that plans on winning the World Series, but then it's also hard to see them trading him if there are any question marks about Will Smith's health, because Smith, we haven't seen him yet in the spring. Obviously, the Dodgers don't seem too concerned about it, but I imagine they'll want to see Smith on the field playing baseball games before they're really willing to trade Feduccia. But even then, I keep thinking about Dalton Rushing. Could they go into a season where if Smith does have to start the season on the IL, you start with Austin Barnes and Dalton Rushing? It's not crazy to think. But yeah, Hunter Feduccia seems like his long-term future is probably not with the Dodgers, and we'll just have to see when that long-term kicks in once the short-term needs are taken care of.
Yeah.
As far as Zyhir Hope, well, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, with the last thing on that, I think Feduccia's future with the team is kind of going to be dependent on how far Dalton Rushing grows as a catcher, as a game caller, receiver, all of that, because that's one of the things the Dodgers are really, really focusing on with him this spring training, and why we've only seen him as a DH, because they're kind of putting him through the ringer as a hey, show up, pretend we're playing against this team and all of their A squad. How would you attack these hitters? What is your game plan? They're kind of, again, throwing him to the wolves here and seeing how he can develop and become a better game caller and a better all-around catcher. And if he puts it all together, Feduccia is definitely going to be one of those guys, one of the first names you can see traded if and when the Dodgers need some help along the way this season.
Absolutely. And then talking about Zyhir Hope, Mike Salas, who you mentioned, he points out in the comments, in addition to hitting the ball, Zyhir Hope has played really good defense too. He played left field, made a couple nice plays in left field.
Yeah.
He's got a great arm. I hate to be this person, but I also kind of like to be this person. If you are hoping to see Zyhir Hope at Dodger Stadium this year, you should probably stop hoping that. He's absolutely extremely talented, very high on the Dodgers prospect list. Everybody in the Dodger organization is high on him, but he's 20 years old and has not played above low A, Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah,
he was very, very good in low A. But so was Diego Cartaya 4 years ago. There is a lot to happen between now and when Zyhir Hope is ready to play in the big leagues. And doesn't mean it couldn't all happen this year. We've seen it with other guys. Who was it a few years ago? Was it Andrew Tolles who went all the way from low A to the big leagues in 1 year? There's been a few of those over the years. It's usually more pitchers, but there was some hitter, I can't remember, who did that. And so you do see it happen every once in a while, and maybe he's going to force the issue. Absolutely, I expect Zyhir Hope in Double-A by the end of the year, and 2026 is totally reasonable. But it's been 4 spring training games, and he looks good. He hasn't faced a Corbin Burns type pitcher yet. He's faced more, the kinds of pitchers who even, who the Dodgers are running out there. The reason the Dodgers are 1-3, that's the kind of pitching he's faced. Doesn't mean he won't succeed in the big leagues. It's not going to happen in 2025 though.
No, and it shouldn't. If that happens, something went horribly wrong for this team. Even if he went out there and somehow, hit 800 at single A and then into double A and dropped 40 bombs or whatever, I just don't think this is the time or the place for Hope. All right, maybe that's a bit much. I think you're kind of busting down the door at that point, but he's also not going to do that. But he's a kid who is a kid. He just turned 20 in January. A steal for the Dodgers when they acquired him in that Michael Busch trade, but he's somebody who still needs some seasoning, and I'm excited to see what he's doing. Seeing that Oppo Taco at Camelback was very nice. Seeing the 2-run double here on Sunday was very nice, but also at the same time, we haven't seen him, even against regular, or I should say Double-A pitching for a consistent amount of time. So let's see him at Double-A before we start, as the kids say, kind of glazing him up when it comes to, hey, he's going to hit the walk-off homer in the World Series here in 25.
But if you do want to get excited, as Luis points out in the chat, he is kind of built like Raul Mondesi. Hope is listed at 5'10", 193. I suspect that weight number is a little outdated, or maybe they only weighed one of his legs. But he's a great athlete. Mondesi was listed at 5'11", 202. So similar builds and similar skill set, arm, speed, power, all those things. Obviously, hit from opposite sides of the plate and all that. But
get him on some roids,
Yeah, and Mondesi made his major league debut at the age of 22 years and 129 days. So I think Hope will make his major league debut earlier than that in life than Mondesi did. So there's that. Yeah. One last thing before we take our last break. Elisheva in the chat was asking about David Bodie. David Bodie, tell me if you think I'm wrong here, Clint, so I can kick you off the show. David Bodie spent 6 years with the Cubs. He had some moments. We've seen on the flashbacks, he had that one. The Cubs were down 3-0 in the bottom of the ninth, and he had a walk-off grand slam. Mm-hmm. Always exciting. Walk-off grand slams are something that Dodger fans are fond of all of a sudden. But he has a .234 batting average in parts of 6 years in the big leagues. He's 31, 32. Yeah, almost 30. He'll be 32 in a month and a half. He's not young. He has a lot of defensive versatility. David Bote is the kind of guy you sign to play in AAA in case somebody gets hurt, right?
Pretty much, yeah. He's here. If something went wrong, maybe there's a setback for Freddie Freeman recovering from that ankle surgery, which everything's pointing to no. We don't need to worry about that. But David Bote is around, like you said, AAA depth, probably has an opt-out sometime around May, and you'll see him take off to somewhere else. And, maybe the Dodgers, fix him as well, and he goes and has himself a nice career, or kind of reinvigorates his career. I mean, he was okay last year. He hit over 300, and like you said, he's had flashes of the pan of being okay, but he's not the type of player the Dodgers need. They have enough of a David Bote. They have better David Botes. I think I'd take, this might be the chat might not like it. I think I'd take Chris Taylor over a David Bote just because we know what you get out of Chris Taylor.
And you're still hoping for the Nolan Arenado trade too. So we're going to come back in a minute. We're going to come back in a minute. ABS, automatic ball strike challenge system, is in place. We've seen it in 3 of the 4 Dodger games, and there's been some interesting results. We are going to judge it because judging on small sample sizes is what we do. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. We are back. Thanks again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thanks for being here with us live. Good group here live with us. Good chat going on. We appreciate all of that. If you're not live, you're listening on Monday morning, we appreciate you too, just as much. Don't let these live people make you feel bad that you had to go to bed early so you could get up for your job. You know what? And actually, I do know we have a lot of listeners on the East Coast, and going live at 11 p.m. on the East Coast, it's hard for a lot of you. So all of you, however you're getting your Locked On Dodgers, we appreciate you. Be sure to go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. And of course, be sure to check out Clint's other 2 shows that he does when he's not busy guest hosting here with me, All Dodgers with Clint Pasillas and Dodger Territory with Clint and Alana Rizzo.
One note on that. We are early for people who are here watching. This is probably useless for the podcast people, but we are for spring training going live earlier. We'll be live at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Mondays and Thursdays. Tomorrow, we welcome LA Times writer Mike DiGiovanna. DG, if you're nasty, he'll be joining myself, Alana Rizzo, talking about things coming out of spring training, including Roki Sasaki, who's kind of being hidden away from people when he's making his debut.
Yeah, we're going to dig into that some more on this show too, probably tomorrow. So yeah, be sure to check all of those out. We got about 5 minutes left here, Clint, which is I think perfect. 1 minute for each call that the home plate umpire had overturned on Sunday with the challenge system. It was the most we've seen the challenge system used. The way it works is you get 2 challenges, but if your challenge wins, you don't lose a challenge. And so theoretically, the umpire could miss unlimited calls and team could challenge all of them and keep on winning as long as they didn't mess up. And we've seen a couple, this spring. I saw one in a Yankees-Rays game where the Rays catcher challenged a ball that was a foot high, and he had to move his glove a foot to frame it, and he still challenged, and he realized that framing doesn't trick the robot. Untrickable robots, that's what we need. You are more on board with the challenge system than I am. My stance has always been, if you have the technology to get the calls right, just get the calls right. I kind of saw that on Sunday where Andy Pajes threw 2 at-bats on Sunday. Andy Pajes had come up with 6 runners on base and struck out 3 times because his second at-bat, he struck out looking and then challenged it and won the challenge and then struck out looking again. But looking at the app, he maybe would have won if he had challenged that second strikeout looking again. It was closer for sure, but it was probably out of the strike zone too. And it's like, I almost feel bad. I saw Richie's comment in the chat. Serious question: what happens to an umpire if his calls keep getting overturned? And I was starting to feel bad for this home plate umpire on Sunday that he just kept messing up and they kept calling him on it.
Hey, it's the new Angel Hernandez. You got to have like that one Angel had. Was it the Yankees postseason series 5-6 years ago or something like that, where every play at first base was just god awfully wrong. But yeah, we've often asked, like, do these umpires get audited outside of just on Twitter every day with umpire auditor? Do they have to face some sort of discipline for being terrible at their job, or like egregiously bad at their job? And some of these, obviously, a lot of the ones we're going to see on ABS, they're close. I mean, these are within probably an inch and a half at most. So I would hope we won't. I would hope there would be some sort of, again, I don't know if it's a public square and throwing eggs at them, because that would be really expensive these days, but something for these umpires to feel shame. That aside, I think in watching today's game and Sunday's game, the thing I like about it most, and where I think it's going to benefit the Dodgers most, is with their catchers, because it was, if I'm not mistaken, unless I'm remembering wrong, it was Barnesy today, and he's the one who challenged a couple of them, and he was dead on. I think catchers are going to be further along than Dodgers hitters there. And somebody like Andy Pajes, I can imagine him not feeling comfortable. You know what I mean? He's still young and not wanting to challenge twice. And he looks like some sort of idiot or prima donna or whatever it is. I think it's going to benefit the Dodgers catchers a lot more, especially early than hitters. What do you think about that?
I think that's probably true. And maybe it's true around the league that catchers, they're not thinking about anything other than catching the ball. They know where they're set up. They know if I'm set up 3 inches outside and I don't move my glove, I'm not going to challenge that call if the umpire called it a ball, and I'm going to hope that the hitter doesn't challenge it if he calls it a strike. That's the thing. Like, maybe we will see, like, people talk about the robot umps are going to kill framing. And my response is always, so long, farewell, whatever else they sing in Sound of Music. I don't care about framing. I don't think it's a baseball skill. I think something that has developed into a useful skill. I think baseball would be better if balls were called balls and strikes were called strikes. So I'm fine with that. And I think maybe even just the threat of it, like, you're not going to set up 3 inches off the plate and hope to get the call because you didn't move your glove. You still set up an inch off the plate. You're still going to try to get those little margins, but I think we may see less egregious framing simply because the hitter is going to be able to tell. Even if the umpire gets fooled, the hitter's going to be like, there's no way that, because the hitter can't see where the catcher's set up. The hitter isn't changing his position based on where the catcher is like the umpire is. So a hitter is going to be there like Max Muncy. If he's up there and he looks down and says, I watched that ball go by below my chin, I could see home plate. I know that was inside. So maybe it'll do the trick. I'm not totally sold yet, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and the fact that it's so quick, I think it's pretty painless right now. It's an easy addition. It's worth reminding people it's not going to happen this season. We're seeing it now. We'll probably see it next spring training, and then the expectation is that it could be implemented by 2026. But it's still, I'm the early returns. I'm fine with. I enjoy it. I would rather have something like this than what you're saying, and I also agree with what you say. Of course, I'm a smart fan, and you are the smart fan. But having just get the call right, have it all be robot umps or something. Now, I like the human element. I like giving us something to complain about. An Angel Hernandez. What would our lives be like if there were no Angel Hernandez in Major League Baseball at some point?
We found out last year, and it was a lot of fun once he was gone.
That's
my
fair.
last word on this. I think it is crazy that they are doing this based on calculations based on the hitter's height. Rather than actually coming in. Okay, it's spring training. Go into the booth, get in your stance, take a swing, and we're going to measure where your strike zone is when you're actually swinging the bat. It's crazy. I do wonder if this is going to force Alex Bregman to start being honest about his height. Are we going to see a hidden update to his baseball reference page? Oh, 6 foot tall Alex Bregman? Turns out he's 5'4". It's because, if Alex Bregman has to hit with the strike zone of a 6 foot tall man, it didn't affect him on Sunday. He hit pretty well, but you know what? It could affect him. So I'm interested to see if we start seeing more honest heights from guys like 5'11". No, anybody who's listed at 5'11" is 5'8", and anybody who's listed at 6 feet is 5'9". But That'll be interesting. But yeah, it's crazy that they're just doing calculations based on height because everybody has a different stance.
I imagine they changed that. That's one of the things. Again, they're ironing out the kinks with this whole thing. So I'll have to stay tuned to see how it turns out by 26.
Yep. That'll do it for us for today. You got anything else, Clint?
No, I'm good. Always, again, it's a blast talking Dodger baseball with you. This felt like a good show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Share it with your wives, your friends, your grandmas, your pets, uncles, whatever. This was a good one. It's good baseball talk here for everybody on this Sunday night and on their drive time in the morning on Monday.
Yeah, and share it with my wife too. She's listened to exactly one episode of Locked On Dodgers, and that was because I had to record it when I was in the same room as her. So she heard it live. But maybe she'll like it. Who knows? That'll do it for us. Be sure to check out Clint's shows. Thank you, Clint. Thanks. Happy birthday to Vince. We miss you. Thank you all for being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, just watch or listen every weekday morning, and then you are an everydayer. You can also go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Clint is on Twitter at RealFRG. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. All three of our DMs are open over there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK5625. We are here every weekday morning. We hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Bye.